Hello. So the next topic I want to cover is introduction to negative numbers. Now, this has been put really early on because, to be honest with you, negative numbers run throughout maths. You need to be able to understand, use, manipulate, simplify negative numbers to be able to understand quite a bit of the content. So it's like a thread through many topics. Nowadays in the GCSE, I'm sure I've said to you before, they like to merge different topics together. And one of those things is bringing negative numbers in where they can. So even though you might be able to do some advanced algebra, if you can't do the basic negative number aspect of it, you're not going to be getting the marks that you need on your algebra topics. Okay, so we're going to start with addition and subtraction. And then we're going to go on to multiplying and dividing negative numbers. So key points then, adding and subtracting. So two minuses make a plus. That means when two negative signs are directly next to each other, then you can change it to a plus. Okay, so if you see two negative signs, I'll just get my board working because it's not turned around right. Let's turn it around the right way. And that's now upside down. There we go. Right, so if I change if you see two negative signs next to each other, you can basically replace that with a plus. It's directly equivalent to a plus, okay? Whereas a minus and a plus makes a minus. So whether you have a minus and a plus in that order or a plus and a minus in that order, that is the same as a minus. Now, there's a few ways of remembering these. How I teach my students is, let's just, for completion, let's just say that two positives is also a plus. What I say is, if two things that are in, I describe it as the same gang, so they're both positive, they're both in the same gang as each other, they're exactly the same, or two negatives, they're both together, then they're happy because they're with the exact same person, they're with their soulmate and they're happy. Now, these people are with completely different people. They're not with the same friendship groups, therefore they're sad and they're negative, right? That might be a way that helps with you. Other students I teach just like to draw a little diagram each time. So we start with the plus there because we're adding. It could be multiplication because it's the same, isn't it? So plus, minus, and a plus minus. They just remember that two positives together make a plus. Two negatives together make a plus, so diagonally it's a plus in that way. And then a plus and a minus together make a minus, and a plus and a negative together there make a minus. Okay, so that's just another way of remembering it. Don't care how, but please just remember that. Can you get that onto one of your flashcards, please, just to make it really clear? Now, you've probably got your own favourite, and I'd be really interested to hear it because it's always nice to hear new ways, the ways that people do things. Okay, whichever your way to remember, I should say. Just change that. For addition and subtraction, it only implies when they're directly next to each other with nothing else in between. So, for example, this can only be applied if you've got something like 2 add -3. Can you see the signs are directly next to each other? Therefore, that is when they can both be replaced with a minus in this case. So 2 subtract 3. You're starting at 2, you've got +2, you've got 2 sweets. We're taking away 3 sweets, going down by 3. We're going to be at -1. Okay. Just a quick point to note here as well. Sometimes you'll see the negative number in a bracket like that. So that's still the same as 2 add -3. It means exactly the same. Right, I'm just going to pause this because the dog's barking and wants to get out. 2 seconds. Okay, let's just go through the example then that I've put there. I'm just going to go create another page. Okay, so the example. And the example is, what is -2? Add -3. Now, sometimes you'll see the -3 in the bracket. Sorry, that looks like 24, doesn't it? I'm just going to erase that bit again, just to make that a little bit neater. There we go. So -2 plus -3. That looks a bit better. Okay, so sometimes that's in brackets, sometimes it's not. It's exactly the same calculation if it's in brackets or if it's not in brackets. Now, remembering our simplifications here. So the positive and the negative directly next to each other ignore the bracket, that's not anything, that is nothing, makes a negative, okay? So that's the first thing I'd correct. Sometimes I get students to highlight it even. Whenever you see a sign directly next to each other, highlight it, make it really clear that they're the only ones that are going to be replaced, and they've replaced with a subtract. Okay, so -2, -2, subtract 3. Don't need to write it out again there because we're all on the same thing now. I'm just going to put a line through that. Okay, now this is where some people want to simplify it again. They think, oh, we've got 2 negatives, the answer must be positive. That is wrong. It's only if they're directly next to each other that you can simplify them. So there's no simplifying there. Now here, all we're thinking, if I'm just going to draw a quick sketch of a number line here, I'm going to do 0 there, -1, we're going down, -2, -3, etc. Now, if we're adding, we're going in that direction. If we're subtracting, we're going in that direction. We're at the number -2. That's where we're starting. And we're going down, we're subtracting, we're going that way by 3 places, okay? So -2 subtract 3 is going to take you to -5, okay? Right, let's scroll down a little bit. So I've kind of included this number line on here just to help you, because some people really struggle with the direction that you're moving in. But if you think you're going more negative in that direction, so that's if you're subtracting, you're getting more positive in that direction. So that's if you're adding on, okay? Right, and that's just that explanation there. Okay, that's all I want to say about adding and subtracting within this part, because more will be covered in the lesson. More will be covered in, the live. So multiplication and division with negative numbers. Now, my advice here is just to completely ignore the negative and positive signs to start with. Now, unlike addition, I mean, it's very similar to addition in the fact that if you've got 2 positives multiplied together, it makes a positive. If you've got a negative and a positive, it's a negative. If you've got a positive and a negative, it's a negative, as we said there, and 2 negatives multiplied together to make a positive. Now, this is different to adding and subtracting because the signs no longer have to be next to each other, okay? For example, if you've got a negative number multiplied by a negative number, they're not going to be next to each other, the signs, but it still makes that positive, okay? Now, my advice for here is to completely ignore the signs to start with. For example, say my calculation was -2 multiplied by 3. Now, my advice, as I've said, completely ignore that negative to start with. I would just do 2 multiplied by 3, okay? 2 times by 3 is 6. Now you consider your signs. So if there is no, so we've got a negative there. If there is no sign in front of it, it means it's a positive, okay? You'd never write +3. You'd just write the number 3, wouldn't you? But we know that because there's no sign there, it's a positive. So once we've got the answer here, now we consider our sign. So we know it's 6, because 2 times 3 is 6. We've done that there. But what's our sign? We've got a negative and a positive. Therefore, it must be a negative. Okay? So that's my advice. Completely ignore the signs and deal with the signs afterwards. Right, just go through this example here. It's the same with division. Let's put a division sign next to the multiplication. So multiplication or division follow the same rules here, okay? So the example on the board is -15 divided by 3. Okay, once again, completely ignore the signs to start with. Instead, do 15 divided by 3. Well, how many 3's go into 15? That means, which is 5, because 3 times 5 is 15. Now we're going to consider the signs. So if we go back to the highlighter again, so we've got a negative sign there, no sign here, which means it must, it's identifying as a positive. Just highlight that. So once again, negative and a positive makes a negative. Okay, so the answer would be -5. Let's just do another example there where they are negatives. So number 2, I'm going to do another division. It could be multiplication, it doesn't matter. But I'm going to do -30 divided by -10. So I'm going to do 30 divided by 10, completely ignoring the signs to start with. 30 divided by 10 is 3. And I'm then going to consider the signs, okay? A negative multiplied by a negative is a positive. So the answer is still 3. Now, once again, for this, sometimes they'll put these negative numbers in brackets. They'll write negative 30 divided by negative 10. Don't be confused by that. It means exactly the same. Okay, the answer is 3. Okay, right. Right, so I've just checked. That's all I wanted to cover here. Markers complete, please, and wait for the lives or move on to the next lesson. Thank you.